Hey, it's me, God's comic, Brad Stine, and on this special edition of Brad Stine Has Issues, it is your daily constitutional. You know, there's been a lot of controversy over that separation of church and state constitutional amendment. You know why it's controversial? Because separation of church and state isn't in the Constitution. Are you confused? You're not alone. We'll be back in a second, and we'll figure it out. You know, one of the things I love about being me is I always illuminate Americans and teach them things they never knew if I didn't exist. But I gotta admit, sometimes I need help. I need a crutch. I need a walker. I need a wheelchair. And I found that in my favorite patriot, my partner in crime in the Comedy and Constitution tour, your Constitution coach, Rick Green from Texas, Dripping Springs. How you doing, brother?
Wheelchair? I'm your wheelchair
You
now?
You are my little...
You around? Are you kidding me?
I need you periodically to help my flaws and my lack of knowledge in Constitution. I needed an expert. You're the only one I could find that's still carrying weapons.
Well, it's nice to be needed. Thanks for having me.
Amen. Well, I love talking to you. Of course, if you all folks don't know who Rick is, he's a Wall Builders radio host with David Barton's ministry. But he also has Patriot Academy, where he teaches youth how to understand the Constitution and conservative values. It's amazing. You can look into that if you want to bring your kids to that. But we're not here to talk about making you money right now, Rick. We're here to talk about making me money, because it's my show. No, I wanted to get into the First Amendment. I mean, you are the Constitution coach. But the First Amendment seems to be incredibly important, probably is why they made it first. Because if we don't have the first, probably none of the other ones would matter. So first off, they call it an amendment. So let's start right here. So when they put all the pieces together, when they decided to put amendments, that sounds like something that came after the original document. So does that make sense? So why do they even call them amendments, as though they were afterthoughts?
No, it's a great point, because the things you're talking about, First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of religion, those things were certainly discussed at the Constitutional Convention, and many of them wanted those things protected in the original document itself. In fact, George Mason is one of the most important founders, one of the most important framers, influenced a lot of the document. He refused to sign the Constitution because those things were not put in as specific protections. So it came very quickly after that. 1787 is when the Constitution was originally written and signed, and then finally ratified, and the new government in place in 1789. And that's when the first 10 amendments, what we know as the Bill of Rights, comes in. So it's only a couple of years after. And you're exactly right. I mean, the First Amendment is there as the first, because those 5 very important freedoms that are listed in the First Amendment are the ones that most Americans agree on and agree that we should protect. I heard your setup at the beginning, though. Separation of church and state, the reason everybody thinks that's in the First Amendment, because the courts have quoted separation of church and state over 3,000 times in opinions over the last 50 or 60 years, and it's not even in the First Amendment.
Now, where did they even come up with the phrase then?
Comes out of a letter by Thomas Jefferson, a letter that one founding father wrote. And this is a founding father that didn't even have anything to do with the First Amendment. Jefferson gave us the Declaration, not the Constitution. But he wrote a letter to the Danbury Baptist Association while he was president. They had asked him about freedom of religion and making sure it was going to be protected and the government wasn't going to micromanage. And he included that phrase in his letter. It was ignored by the courts for 150 years. 1947, Hugo Black brings it into the new vernacular of this discussion of freedom of religion. And even then it was ignored for a few years. But man, all of a sudden we latched onto that phrase, separation of church and state, and it became the new perception of what the First Amendment's all about, as if somehow freedom of religion means no religion, which is what it's turned into the way the court has used it.
Well, if you actually read the First Amendment, and here's one thing that really blows me away, because so many Americans probably have never even read the Constitution, but it's really simple. I mean, you think it's going to have all this lawyerese, and it's like, here's the first line that everybody uses for our religious liberties, which to me are the most important liberties, because it's about your conscience. It's about your ability to live the way you see the world and not be disturbed by the government. But it says Congress. So am I right in thinking that before we make any thoughts about church and state, The first element is Congress has to be involved. This has something to do with Congress involving themselves in what we're about to discuss. Shall make no law, stop. So now apparently it's only about a congressional law is what we're dealing with. And lastly, respecting an establishment of religion. So it sounds to me like they're basically saying there can't be a congressional law that establishes a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Thus, there can't be any laws that keep you from practicing your religion in public and in private. So that's really all the first line says. Am I missing anything, or is that what they meant originally, that this can only be referencing a congressional law in regards to what your freedoms of religion are?
See, here's your problem, Brad. You're actually using common sense, and you're actually thinking like a normal person. You haven't been all messed up by going to law school.
I am so sorry.
Brainwashed and have your brains fixed for you. You're actually thinking exactly like the founding fathers hoped you would think, that you would actually read the plain language of the First Amendment and say, oh, Congress, yeah, this is actually dealing with the federal government. This is dealing with Congress doing something. It doesn't say the states shall make no law. It doesn't say your community shall make no law. So you're right. It's dealing with Congress. And then secondly, that it's a law that says we're making your denomination now the national religion of the country. If you happen to be Baptist and you get elected president, you get to make everybody else be a Baptist. That's what they were trying to stop. That's what they were trying to prevent here, was a national denomination. So your plain reading of the First Amendment is exactly the right reading. Unfortunately, the high priest of the law, the judges these days, have reinterpreted and reinterpreted and reinterpreted, which was not their job in the first place, but they have put their own subjective meaning into the First Amendment so many times over so many years that we've lost the plain, clear meaning. You just described it exactly right. It's all about keeping the government from stopping you from living out your faith, and either doing that in one of two ways, either making a national denomination that everybody had to adhere to, or two, just simply saying, hey, Brad, your religion's, we don't really think that's right, so you can't live that out. No free exercise of your religion, which you nailed it, man. It's the way you think. It's what we believe. This is that whole right of conscience, but it's also how we live that out, how we live and work and all those things, actually using that freedom that we're guaranteed in the First Amendment.
So when they talk about, because they usually reference it either as church and state or the establishment clause, that as though that's some sort of unique, standalone, foundational principle that needs to be, the bulwark of this idea of making sure that religion doesn't seep into culture. But so are you kind of saying that they reinterpreted or gave a deeper gravitas to the word establishment, as though it was saying don't in any way give authority or power or any kind of access to religion in public if taxpayers have to be involved, that they kind of manufactured that? And of course, Hugo did it. And Hugo, I mean, if you're named Hugo, you know you're off the rails. You knew right off the bat he had a problem. But is that kind of what they're using, is that establishment was sort of their way of trying to, as you said, sort of subjectively inculcate into culture what they wanted it to say, as opposed to what it meant? What did establishment mean? Is there some gray area there that we don't understand?
No, I mean, if we would just look at their actual words, their debates when they debated the First Amendment, the discussions that we had, we would understand even better. But the language is as clear as it could possibly be. And by the way, Hugo was a big KKK guy too. So if anybody's wondering where we got this warped view of our freedom of religion now meaning that the government can stop you from living out your religion, or, and I think this is where you're headed, Brad, they changed establishment to endorsement. So if you even endorse or you say that there's anything good about religion, which the founders said over and over again, because it's good for society, right? The better religion is and the stronger the churches are, then the better they're serving the community, the smaller government can be, because people are living out their faith. They're taking care of their neighbor. So we don't need as much government. You don't have as much crime. All the bad stuff, you have less of it. All the good stuff, you have more of it if religion is strong in America. But so to say that they didn't want government endorsing religion is also a distortion. But that's what they've done. They've taken that word establishment, turned it into endorsement, and now any government, not just Congress, not just federal government, but state, local, any level of government that does anything that someone can claim you smiled upon someone's expression of faith, therefore you violated the First Amendment. That's where we are right now with the court's new interpretation of the First Amendment. It's an absolute distortion of what the Constitution was intended to do. It was supposed to protect that kid praying at school. It was supposed to protect that teacher even being able to say, hey, you've got this problem in your life. Guess what? We found throughout history that this answer from faith actually helps you with that problem. That teacher does that today. Somebody claims endorsement means establishment, means you violated the First Amendment. It's gotten us way off track, and it's really hurt the culture.
Well, there's two things we've established so far. We've established that the misrepresentation of the first by the judges is part of what has caused this problem. And secondly, we've established that this is the end of this segment. So I want to go in a moment
and don't name your kid Hugo. You forgot that part.
We established that if you name your kid Hugo, things are going to go off the rails. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to put an end to this because I do want to come back later and talk about, is there something that we can do to sort of try to fix or reset these ideas? But right now we got to go. This is God's Comic, Brad Stine. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're so politically correct that you're shocked and amazed that religion could have any kind of value or even be spoken of as freedom, put a helmet on. This is Brad Stine Got Issues, and I'm PC free, which is liberty. See you next time. Hey, all you original Constitution haters, like and subscribe to my channel while you still have the constitutional right to do so. Also, hit the notification bell. You don't have to. It's a free country, thanks to the Constitution. And watch one of these videos so you can hate me even more, because believe it or not, trolls, you're actually making me more popular. I love you. That's what free speech is all about.